If you love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may abide with you forever. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive, because it neither sees him nor knows him. But you know him, for he dwells with you, and he will be in you. Okay, we can start. So, this might not be a great class, but the first thing I want to say is John, even though he's our most contemplative disciple, kind of our favorite, our hero, so deep, so profoundly enlightened, he could be a little hard nosed. And you can't hear it as much in this one. Maybe you did, though. Maybe a little bit you think, well, maybe I don't love Jesus, I still sin. You might think that. And later in one of his letters, he says, if you still sin, you don't love God. He says, if you love God, you won't sin. And you can read that and feel a little tweaked by that. And I remember going to Father Patrick and saying, look, you say I'm doing okay, except I still sin. So what do you think about this? And he said, I think he's a little hard nosed. And that's easy to be. You could see how it is. For him, when he wrote his gospel, he was perfected. He was all the way in. So for him, that's it. Sin was over. If he ever sinned, ever, it would have been never intentionally, completely ignorantly on accident. He had been completely brought into union with God. So, so you think that's a little harsh. It could have been a lot harsher. He was coming from a place, a certain place. So it was easy for him to speak from there, and we're glad he did because we want to know that profound, complete, total union with God is possible. We want to know that. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't know what you could come to. But we also want to take everything in context. And so then I'm reminded of Father Carley, who, when I first started having him, I'd go have tea with him. We would just have tea for 3 hours and just get hopped up on caffeine. He was from Ireland. They don't do coffee, they do tea. And he had, these black bags of tea, and it was strong. I mean, I remember thinking, man, I am freaking, whoa. But he'd be talking theology, we'd be drinking tea. It was so great. And one of the things he said is you have to remember, Clinton, anything you read on the page, all of the white page is God's love. And if you don't take that into context, you miss the message. So here's the commandments Jesus spoke of directly, 6 of them, through the Gospels. If you keep my commandments, he said. One is do not kill. So most of us are probably okay there. Probably all right. Another is do not commit adultery. Do not commit adultery. And you would think, why would that be next to killing? That is so big. Killing is so intense. How could that be so intense? And if anyone in here has committed adultery, so what? I mean, you're forgiven. So what? I don't know if I have. I don't think I have, but if I had, I wouldn't be worried about it now. So what if you did? But at the same time, what he's saying is, all of society is built on marriage. All of it. It's all built on marriage. It's all built on a large number of people marrying and having kids. And raising those children as best as you can, with as little trauma as you can, with as much wisdom as you can bring them to, so that each step, each generation brings humanity forward a step towards God. No doubt, we've been imperfect parents, my wife and I think profoundly imperfect in many ways. But there's also no doubt that we did way, way, way better than our parents did. So that's what you think of generational healing. If each generation does better than the generation before and God's grace is there, then humanity, like, think what God's trying to do. If we weren't focused on the stock market, the next iPhone, where they're getting their batteries from slave labor, if we weren't focused on the things we're focused on, and we were focused on God for real, if that was the primary mode of thinking for all of humanity, we might be producing only saints in a few generations. Think about that. If what Jesus taught was what we really did, if it was what all our greatest thinkers were putting their attention on, if all of our society saw that as the goal in life, we could probably have 18-year-old saints all the time. That could probably be normal. And we've got all these other focuses and all these other desires that get in the way. But if we had what Jesus taught as a real way of life, we'd be producing saints as a norm. Because they'd be raised by saints or almost saints. And they'd grow up in that environment and have it. They would absorb it naturally. So adultery is just a direct sin against the entire movement of God generationally, trying to bring people forward. And it causes pain, and it wrecks everything, and it makes the kids' outcomes lower in every way that you can measure. So you can see now why it's so serious. So think about this. Well, I want to talk about the other sins, but think about this. Here's what it isn't, though. It isn't that if you commit adultery, God will be up there and kind of slap you for it or be mad at you for it. It's not that. It's not that. It's what God is really doing. God is really lifting up all of humanity, bringing everyone to union. And you're either in the flow of that, and you're living in such a way that you can be in the flow with that, or you're not living in such a way where you could be in the flow of that. It's not God saying, I will withhold this from you if you commit adultery. It's not that. It's God saying, here's where the river is going. It's not going over there. If you go over there, you're no longer in the river. So then you say, I'm sorry I got out of the river. I'm sorry I dried out. This is terrible. I'm really thirsty. I'd like to get back in the river. Then God says, okay, come on back in. And that's it. It's over after that. It's over. Just get back in the river. It doesn't matter. But that's the way you have to think about sin. Always have to think about sin this way. It's never God is angry in the way that Scripture will personify it in that way. It's not like that. It's what is in the flow and what is not in the flow. And, okay, so and another one, do not steal, do not bear false witness. I wanted to mention this one because we're in a crisis of meaning in our culture. I went to a family gathering, and I would call her my niece. I don't know what she really is. I don't know anything about family structure. She's something. And she said she doesn't believe any election is ever real. It's all made up. It's already pre-decided. And she believes in every single conspiracy theory that's out right now. Now, I love her, so I thought, well, I'm weird too, so I'm surely not going to mock you. Like, instantly, I just wanted to know I believe in some weird stuff too, so don't worry. I don't believe in all that. But I did mention that it's only because of lying. It's only because lying has become so rampant that everyone could be in such doubt about everything. None of that could ever take place if there wasn't so much lying that no one believes anyone anymore. That it is reasonable not to believe. Think about that. If one day I started thinking about the commandments, and I started thinking about each one, why it would matter so much. If no one ever lied, ever, we wouldn't even need lawyers or contracts. Like, we spend an amazing amount of energy and skill and talent just on managing people's lying. Think about that. It's fantastic. So think about that then. If God says don't lie, because God is truth itself. God is truth. When you tell a lie, you just, right at that moment, you step outside of truth. That's it. God isn't mad, not upset. But if you lie, when you lie, you step outside of the flow of power. Because nothing good can get done without trust. You know, there's another, I see like a dastardly sin in the world right now, where people say you should never ever believe someone's personal account of anything. Ever. So if someone has a direct experience of God, you're supposed to, according to this school of thought, you're supposed to not believe them when they tell you. You should only believe it if it's been demonstrated in a lab. So think how sinful that is, how profoundly sinful that is. How far away from reality we must be to buy that. So all this mistrust, all built on people lying. When I first got on the path and I got struck by that blinding white light, then for many years I was struck with that light, and I worked at a restaurant. My first teacher was really big on lying. If you lied, he made you go tell the person the truth every time until you stop lying. And if you know you got to go tell the truth, that's embarrassing, and so you stop lying. Because it's terrible to have to go tell the truth. I freaking lied. It's terrible. So he made you do that, and that meant if you were his student, you had to freaking do it, or you had to lie to him, and I didn't lie to him. So, I'm working as a waiter, and I screw up on this order. So the person doesn't get their food on time. I want my tip. So I just tell him the cook screwed it up. And in that moment, I felt all the power leave my body. All of it. It just left me. It was so direct. It flowed right out of my... Now, that's a very... I wouldn't feel that now. That was a teaching moment, I guess. But it left the minute, and all I did is blame a nameless cook. They'll never meet the cook. They'll never know. I didn't say Joe did it. That guy's a real problem around here. Just the cook messed it up. Power gone. Power gone. Did God turn his back on me? No. Am I still loved by God in that very moment? Profoundly. So Jesus is talking about something else here. He's talking about a certain level of intimacy with God. He's talking about a certain level of flowing with the power. The power is moving people towards union. To whatever degree your actions are doing the same, you're in that power. It's not even personal. At that level, think about it as not being personal. It's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. It's not warm or cold. It's just the river is going that direction. When you go a different direction, you're not in the river. It's that simple. Except that God still loves you and meets you at the sidetrack. And coaxes you back and cares about you. Except for that love that is always there no matter what happens. The other commandment he mentioned is honor your father and mother. And I always felt a specific pain in church when they would say that one, because they would say your parents love you and they've cared for you and they've sacrificed so much for you. And none of that was true. So I thought, so this community is for everyone with good parents. Where do I go? I want to know where I go to hear my sermon, because my sermon was different. But it does remain true that no matter, some people from my camp are here tonight. Not everyone, but some are. Some of us come from really rough backgrounds. And it remains true that if we don't forgive and love, we cannot be whole. We cannot be whole. So no matter where we come from, no matter what our upbringing is, if you have good parents, a lot of people I met in the last number of years have good parents. And the stuff they complain about, I think, is so funny. I think like, oh, your mom dotes over you too much. She gets involved in your life too much with like a little bit too sticky of love. Wow, how would it be? That'd be so nice. No kidding, really. And they're so bugged by it. And I think, wow, man, you're so lucky to have that. So lucky to have that. They get too worried about you? Oh. So that's so sad. I'm so sorry. But they still got to do the whole forgiveness and it still does its little bit of damage and they got to work through it. But honor your father and mother. I asked Father Patrick about that. What do I do? I had a really rough upbringing. It's not so easy. I said, I can't, at the point in time, I said I could not forgive them. That has changed. That's not true now. But at the time I said, I can't forgive them. He said, do you want to? Are you willing to forgive them completely? And I said, for sure I am. He said, then you're already doing it. You're already honoring your father and mother. You're already there. Are you moving that way honestly? And if you are, you're in that commandment. But in your own inventory, I know you've thought of it, and I hear a lot of inventories. To the degree that a person has not come to peace with their parents, and just to that degree they're not at peace in their life. It's big. It's a huge percentage of it. Just you got to come to peace with it all. The good, the bad, the loss, every bit of it. The wounds that come from, my mom she did love me actually. She did a pretty good job, and then she got cancer. And she spent the next 10 years being almost dead and sick. And I lost her. I just lost her. And it left a giant hole in my heart. And then she had problems come up from being, I'm sure, so tired and so hurt and wounded. And just life. And then she got kind of, we conflicted with one another a lot. And she could have done a better job, maybe, had she not been so sick. And so wounded and so broken. And that all leaves a giant hole, and you have to come to peace with all of that. So that's another commandment he brought up. Honor your father and mother. And it's not rose-colored glasses. That's not it. You have to see it for what it is. But it really ends in love. That's what it ends in. It ends in love. Forgiveness and love. And, real love, freedom from them, honor them doesn't mean be like them. Right? It doesn't mean stay loyal to the family way. It just means forgive and love. Okay, so God's love is not conditional. Everyone's loved no matter what. That is the foundation of it all. There's no conditions to it. But I don't know if you've had this experience. Maybe you have. I see it all the time. Someone comes in new. They're involved in all kinds of worldly pursuits of various kinds. I didn't think of an example, but they might be watching porn still, and they might be chasing clout with people, trying to be somebody, and chasing money, and whatever they're doing. And I love them, especially if there's a chemistry. Sometimes there's a chemistry, and I just love them. But when they start maturing, and they start coming in with grown-up desires and attitudes, when they start entering into Christ at a deeper level, a new level of conversation opens up. There's a deeper love. It just happens. I don't love them more, but there's more of them to love. And there's a deeper intimacy there. There's just a deeper intimacy. There's a, yes, me too. Yes, I see that. Yes, I value that about you. Yes, that's how I feel too. It's so important, all of this. And you start to see that flow happen. You don't love that person more than someone just at the beginning. You don't. No way. You really don't. There's a lot more to connect on. That's what Jesus is talking about. If you keep my commandments, we will come and make our home in you. Think about that. There's just more to connect with, and more to connect on, and more to connect about. So even on the personal level, so I talked about it not being personal, but what about the personal level? Have you ever noticed that when you sin, you push God away? A little bit. Then you stop doing that. God's like, dude, I was here all the time, but every time you do that, you push me away. You hide yourself, like in the Garden of Eden. You clothe yourself. You're ashamed. You don't want to be exposed to me. So if you think about God, God doesn't have qualities. God is those qualities. This is the way they describe God. God isn't actually loving. God is actually love. God isn't actually just interested in truth. God is truth. Whatever qualities God has, God actually is those qualities. So it's not a person who's working on them like we are before union. It's a person who is all of that. So then you can see how being out of truth, one lie puts you out of truth while you're lying, but a way of life, of deception or manipulation, that permanently puts you outside of God's power. Not because it's personal, but because it's the way it is. So you think about all of that, the deception, bearing false witness, presenting it one way so you're not in trouble with your wife or husband. That stuff is a lie. It's a lie. And it's not personal, but when you lie, you're outside of reality. It's not reality anymore. And there's only power in reality. God's love is still love. So God sees you and says, I still love you. Don't care. Don't worry. I love you no matter what. But your capacity to participate in God's reality is diminished by those tendencies. And something John of the Cross said I thought was wonderful. He said, a habitual state of mild sin is more damaging than an occasional bout of profound sin. And you can see why that is from this perspective. Get out of the river for 1 hour, get back in, say I'm sorry, and you're all the way in. Not that big of a deal. But all the time a little out, all the time just walking on the bank, way bigger deal. It's a way bigger deal. So Jesus says, if you keep my commandments, I will send you a helper, the Spirit of truth. And later somewhere he says, that will guide you into all truth. And we know that truth is not a theological proposition. I mean, we know you can say it, but we know that's not truth. We know truth is not dogmatic statements. Truth is telling you that if you keep his commandments, he will guide you into all truth. He will help you get to all truth. The truth shall set you free. All the things Jesus says about truth. But he's not talking about a quality. He's talking about a dimension that God is. So he's talking about how to wake up out of an illusion and a lie, a false reality we live in. Thinking that I am permanently separate from God because I have sinned is one of those profound lies that must be shattered. Thinking that my sin, that I want to stop but can't yet stop, is more powerful than God's love or forgiveness or salvation is profound illusion. It's profound illusion. When Jesus talks about truth, he's talking about the way things really are. I don't know a better way to say that. The way I know it, just cutting through, came to my mind again. I gave that talk on cutting through. Some people spun out. Because they're like, I can't, and I'm all upset now. But when you're not meditating, okay, and you don't have anything to do, and instead of doing something distracting, you just sit down and get serious with God for some time. And you feel the power come over you. And you feel it moving in you. It might be, today for me, it's very peaceful. My legs feel so warm and yummy. I'm so grateful for this energy of God. It's very stable and warm and comforting. But it could be anything. It could be accusing. Someone told me that he read somewhere or heard somewhere that when you wake up and when you go to sleep, your mind is the most fluid. It's when you can make the most change. And then, I don't know if that's true or not, but he heard it. And I thought that's very interesting when he said it to me, because coming out of meditation, unless I get jolted out by a flamethrower, by someone saving us from a fire, thank you. If I can come out, I like to not rush out. Sorry. I like to not rush out, because when I come out of that very deep place, and often when I come out of sleep, in the morning especially, I can feel a profound effect of God purifying me. A lot of times I'll come out of a dream right as I wake up that is all about what's wrong with me and the disorder in me. And there's a window there, I've noticed. If I don't just hurry up, there's a window there where I can repent and have a change of heart at a deep level that sometimes I can't otherwise get to. So I thought that's probably true. It's probably when your brain is more fluid and they're using that time for me. It's why I had to break from my father, who said, "Get up, boy." You're struck with fear. Saturday morning, man, you're already in trouble. Get up right now. And I started hitting the snooze button. And, everyone says, don't hit the snooze if you want to succeed in life. For me, snooze is the key to succeeding in life. Because there's that time to do this prayer thing. There's this prayer that happens in that more altered state that is powerful. It's powerful. It's a good time. But what I'm saying is, like, you feel when you're in those states with God, what you're experiencing is reality. You're experiencing truth. You're experiencing the way things really are. And it's like stepping out of a dream, a lie, a world of meaninglessness and shallowness. And you get into the real world where there's flow and there's power and there's meaning and there's truth and there's God. And everything has a reason. It's going somewhere. That's all reality. And we turn on the news and you almost never hear anything about that ever. All of our best thinkers focused on something else. It's insane. It is insane. And it's upside down. And then people wonder what's wrong and why am I in such disorder and why are my kids messed up and what's going on. And it's all so unnecessary. Okay, so truth is a certain way, and we're supposed to align ourselves to truth and become the way that is. That's the Christian path. To become like God by participating in God. If the goal is a beautiful mandala made of sand, many colors, the Christian way is not to meticulously lay out the sand, piece by piece, by design. That would not be the Christian way. That could be done. It's not the way Jesus taught. It's more like placing the paper over a speaker that's tuned to a certain frequency, and the sand begins to vibrate. And it just finds itself, this is all real, it really happens, it finds itself in a beautiful pattern, a living, moving pattern. That's the Christian way. That's the Christian way. Christ is truth. The Trinity is truth. We relax. We expose ourselves to that power. We become fluid, flexible, feminine, willing, surrendered, softened, and we become like that power. Men have to let go of their sternness and their stoicism because we hold these things, these ideals we've been given, which are death to the spiritual path. We all hold them. And we become like God by participating in God. That is the way. In some of the moods God will put you in, people will not understand. Sometimes you want to come out of it to fit in with the people around you, and for the most part, you should not do that. Because that would be loving people before God, and that's the opposite of the commandment. Just when you're in class, I feel like the Holy Spirit is guiding me to shift things a little bit. And I think it'll happen slow, but because I tend to be slow these days. I have turtle power. I really do. It's like if I have a totem right now, it's turtle, man. Used to be like a lion or something cool. Now I'm just a turtle. And that's okay with me. It's taught me some humility to be slow. But I would just say, I will slow down when I speak and I'll transmit more power. And just make sure you're listening to that and receiving that. It's more important than the words. Some of my speeches got really good, but I feel like they were good, I know, and I'll do it still sometimes. But also I felt the Holy Spirit say, yes, but. So you speak it well now. So it's words, right, Clint? It's words. How about power? It's all about that. And I know the power's in here tonight. Then you soak that up, man. You don't miss that. Don't be in your head. Listen to it. It doesn't come through me anymore, so it's not. Well, you're lucky it doesn't. It just comes in the room. But it's from God, and that's the lesson. That's the reception. That's the thing. Don't say, when am I going to start noticing God instead of just noticing God?